Billionaire was buying a cake with his fiancée for engagement, until his ex appeared with a child. Welcome to Secrets Narrated. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. When the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10 and share what you felt along the way. And if you enjoy emotional stories filled with twists and hidden truths, make sure to follow Secrets Narrated so you don't miss the next one. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy every detail. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of sweetness and light, Manhattan's most exclusive confectionery, casting golden rays across displays of delicate macarons and artisanal chocolates. Nathaniel Rowe adjusted his custom charcoal suit jacket and checked his Patek Philippe watch, 10:30 sharp, exactly as scheduled. This is absolutely divine, darling. Clarissa Vaughn's perfectly manicured fingers traced the edge of a 3-tiered vanilla cake, adorned with sugar peonies. Her voice carried that practiced enthusiasm she used for charity galas and board meetings. Very us, don't you think? Nathaniel nodded, his steel blue eyes scanning the cake without really seeing it. At 40, he'd learned to perfect the art of appropriate responses. It's elegant, he agreed, though the word felt hollow in his mouth. The confectioner, a middle-aged woman with flour-dusted apron, beamed as she made notes. Wonderful choice. The Madagascar vanilla with champagne buttercream is our signature, very popular for high-profile engagements. High profile, that's what this was. A merger of social status wrapped in fondant and good intentions. Nathaniel's therapist would call this emotional compartmentalization, a skill he'd mastered after years of anxiety medication and carefully structured sessions. We'll need it for 300 guests, Clarissa continued, her diamond engagement ring catching the light as she gestured. The Plaza Ballroom, naturally. 300 guests. 300 witnesses to what should have been the happiest day of his life, but felt more like the closing of a very expensive business deal. The bell above the entrance chimed. Nathaniel glanced up reflexively and felt his world tilt on its axis. Elena Whitaker stood in the doorway, her long auburn hair catching the morning light like burnished copper. She wore a simple navy dress that accentuated her curves, and in her arms was a little girl with dark hair and the most striking blue eyes he'd ever seen, eyes that looked exactly like his own. "Mommy, is this where you make the princess cakes?" The child's voice was sweet and curious, her small hands reaching toward a display of cupcakes topped with edible glitter. "Yes, sweetheart, this is Mommy's shop." Elena's voice was softer than he remembered, worn smooth by years of gentle conversations and bedtime stories. Nathaniel's chest constricted. 4 years. 4 years since he'd heard that voice, since he'd seen those green eyes that used to look at him like he hung the moon. Now those same eyes were focused entirely on the little girl, their little girl, with a tenderness that made his throat burn. "Nathaniel?" Clarissa's voice seemed to come from underwater. "You've gone quite pale. Are you feeling all right?" He couldn't respond, couldn't breathe. The carefully constructed walls he'd built around his emotions were cracking, and behind them was 4 years' worth of regret, longing, and a truth he'd been too proud and too terrified to acknowledge. Elena hadn't noticed him yet. She was crouched down, adjusting the little girl's pink sweater, her movements practiced and loving. The child, Luna, his mind supplied, though he didn't know how he knew, was chattering about the cakes, her tiny fingers pointing at different decorations. "She's beautiful," Clarissa murmured, following his gaze. What an adorable little family. The word family hit him like a physical blow. This should have been his family. This warmth, this easy love, this perfect little girl who carried his eyes and Elena's smile. This should have been his life. But he'd chosen control instead of chaos, stability instead of passion, and the safe harbor of a woman who would never challenge him instead of the storm of the woman who had loved him with her whole heart. Elena stood, her hand automatically smoothing down Luna's hair, and their eyes met across the confectionery. Time stopped. Her face went pale, her lips parting slightly in shock. Luna, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults, tugged on her mother's dress. "Mommy, can we get the one with the butterfly?" Elena's gaze never left Nathaniel's. In her eyes he saw 4 years of exhaustion, strength, and something else. A fierceness that hadn't been there before. The fierceness of a woman who had learned to be enough for 2 people. "Mr. Rowe?" The confectioner's voice broke the spell. "Shall we finalize the details for your cake?" His engagement cake, to another woman. While his daughter, His daughter stood 10 feet away, asking her mother for butterfly cupcakes. Nathaniel felt the last of his carefully maintained composure shatter. "We need to go," he said abruptly, his voice rough. "We'll call you." "But darling," Clarissa protested. "Now." The word came out harsher than intended, but he couldn't stay here another second. Not with Luna's innocent chatter filling the space where his presence should have been for the last 3.5 years. He turned and walked toward the door, his legs feeling like they might give out. As he passed Elena, he caught the faint scent of vanilla and something uniquely her, something that transported him back to Sunday mornings in bed, to whispered promises and shared dreams. "Nathaniel," she whispered, and his name on her lips was like a prayer and a curse combined. He didn't stop. He couldn't, because if he stopped, if he looked back at his daughter's face one more time, he might never be able to leave, and he wasn't ready for the truth that was waiting for him in those familiar blue eyes. The elevator to Nathaniel's penthouse felt like a cage ascending to nowhere. Clarissa's heels clicked against the marble floor as they entered the sprawling apartment, her voice a distant buzz about guest lists and floral arrangements. But all he could hear was a little girl's voice asking about butterfly cupcakes. "Darling, you're not listening." Clarissa's tone sharpened with the precision of a woman accustomed to commanding attention in boardrooms. She stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, her silhouette perfectly framed against the afternoon skyline. Nathaniel loosened his tie, his hands trembling imperceptibly. "I heard you. Then what did I just say about the seating arrangements?" He couldn't answer because he hadn't heard a word. His mind was trapped in that confectionery, replaying every second of Luna's sweet chatter, every nuance of Elena's shocked expression, every detail of the life that should have been his. "Nathaniel." Clarissa's voice cut through his thoughts like a blade. "What happened back there?" He walked to his home bar, poured 3 fingers of whiskey, and downed it in one burning gulp. The alcohol did nothing to quiet the storm raging in his chest. "Someone I used to know?" "Used to know?" She repeated his words slowly, her lawyer's instincts sensing blood in the water. "That woman with the child?" The word child made his stomach clench. Not just any child. His child. A little girl with his eyes and Elena's smile, who had spent 3.5 years growing up without him because he'd been too proud, too stupid, too terrified to believe the truth. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicate it." Clarissa moved closer, her perfume, expensive and cold, invading his space. "I don't appreciate mysteries, especially not from my fiancé." Fiancé. The word felt foreign on his tongue now, like speaking a language he'd suddenly forgotten. How could he marry Clarissa when every cell in his body was screaming Elena's name? His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "Meeting with the Sustainability Board moved to tomorrow. Your afternoon is clear." Clear. Nothing about his life felt clear anymore. "I need some air," he said, already reaching for his jacket. "We have the florist consultation in an hour." "Cancel it." "Nathaniel." "Cancel everything." The words came out harder than he intended, but he was drowning in the weight of his own cowardice. "I need time to think." He left Clarissa standing in their pristine apartment, surrounded by wedding magazines and the hollow echo of a life that suddenly felt like someone else's. Sweetness and light was quieter in the late afternoon. Through the window, Nathaniel could see Elena behind the counter, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, flour dusting her navy apron. Luna sat at a small table in the corner, coloring with the intense focus that only children possessed. His daughter. The words still didn't feel real. The bell chimed as he entered, and Elena looked up. This time he didn't run. "We're actually closed," she said quietly, but she didn't move to escort him out. "I know." His voice was rougher than he intended. "I saw the sign." Luna looked up from her coloring book, her blue eyes, his eyes, studying him with innocent curiosity. "Mommy, who's that man?" The question hit him like a physical blow. She didn't know him. This perfect little person who carried half his DNA looked at him like he was a stranger, which he supposed he was. "Just someone Mommy used to know, sweetheart," Elena said softly. "Why don't you finish your Princess Castle?" Luna nodded and returned to her coloring, humming a tune that made Nathaniel's chest ache with unexpected tenderness. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Elena's hand stilled on the dish rag she'd been using to clean the counter. "Yes, she is. Elena, I need to know." "Not here." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "Luna, baby, can you go play in Mommy's office? There are new stickers in the desk drawer." The little girl's face lit up. "The sparkly ones?" "The sparkly ones." Luna gathered her crayons and skipped toward a door marked private, her small feet barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. The innocence of her joy was a stark contrast to the tension crackling between the adults. When the door closed behind her, Elena turned to face him fully. 4 years had changed her. There was a strength in her posture that hadn't been there before, a quiet confidence that spoke of battles fought and won in solitude. You want to know if she's yours? It wasn't a question. Nathaniel's throat felt like sandpaper. Is she? Elena's laugh was soft and bitter. Do you really need to ask? Look at her eyes, Nathaniel. Look at the way she tilts her head when she's thinking. Look at her stubborn streak when she doesn't want to eat her vegetables. Each word was a knife twisting in his chest. All those moments, all those firsts. First steps, first words, first day of preschool. He'd missed them all. Why didn't you? Didn't I what? Elena's voice rose slightly, then immediately softened, mindful of Luna in the next room. Didn't I try to tell you? I did try, Nathaniel. I came to your apartment when I was 8 months pregnant. 8 months. Do you remember what you said to me? He remembered. God, he remembered every cruel word. I don't want more conversation. Some for my life. I'm pregnant. That's impossible. You're just trying to trap me. The memory made him physically ill. I was scared, he whispered. You were scared? Elena's composure cracked slightly. I was 28 years old, pregnant and completely alone. My family was in Oregon. I had no support system, no money saved for a baby. And the man I loved, the man whose child I was carrying, told me I was lying, and to get out of his life. Each word was justified, but they flayed him alive nonetheless. I thought we were using protection. We were, but nothing is 100% effective, and you know that. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of protection he remembered from their worst fights. That night we had the fight about your work schedule, remember? You came home at 2 a.m, we argued, then we made up. We were both emotional, not thinking clearly. He remembered that night, the desperate way they'd reached for each other, trying to bridge the growing gap between them with passion instead of communication. Elena, if I had known, you did know. I told you, and you chose not to believe me. Her voice was steady now, but he could see the pain still fresh in her green eyes. So I did what I had to do. I figured it out alone. From the office came the sound of Luna's sweet voice, singing softly to herself. The melody was hauntingly familiar, a lullaby Elena used to hum when she couldn't sleep. What's her full name? He asked quietly. Luna Grace Whitaker, not Roe. She didn't carry his name because he'd never given her the right to it. I've been paying child support, Elena said suddenly. To myself, I mean. Every month I put money aside in an account for her. Money I couldn't really afford to save, but I did it anyway. Because someday, I thought, someday you might want to be her father, and I didn't want your money to be the reason. The generosity of that gesture, the hope it implied, broke something inside him. Elena, I need you to understand something. She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her familiar scent of vanilla and warmth. Luna is my world. She's happy, healthy, and loved. If you want to be part of her life, it has to be because you genuinely want to be her father, not because you feel guilty or obligated. And us? The words slipped out before he could stop them. What about us? Elena's smile was sad and beautiful. There is no us, Nathaniel. You're getting married, remember? I saw the engagement announcement in the Times. The engagement. Clarissa. The life he'd built on the foundation of forgetting Elena existed. That's not. He stopped himself. What could he say? That it wasn't real love? That he'd been trying to replace her with a pale imitation? That every day for 4 years he'd thought about her and wondered what might have been? You should go, Elena said gently. Luna will be getting sleepy soon and she gets cranky when her routine is disrupted. He nodded, though every instinct screamed at him to stay, to demand more time, more answers, more chances to fix what he'd broken. At the door, he turned back. Elena? Yes? I was wrong. About everything, I'm sorry. Her eyes softened slightly. I know. Can I see her again? Properly, I mean. Not like this. Elena was quiet for a long moment, considering. She goes to Riverside Park every Saturday morning at 10. She likes to feed the ducks. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a door left slightly ajar. As he walked away from the confectionery, Nathaniel felt the careful architecture of his controlled life crumbling around him. But for the first time in 4 years, the destruction felt like freedom. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made Central Park look like a painting. Nathaniel stood at the edge of Riverside Park at 9:45 a.m., clutching a small bag of duck food he'd bought from a vendor, his heart hammering against his ribs like a caged bird. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Luna's face, the way she tilted her head while coloring, the melody of her humming, those startling blue eyes that were mirrors of his own. For the first time in 4 years, his anxiety medication felt inadequate against the storm raging in his chest. "You're early." Elena's voice made him turn. She approached with Luna skipping beside her, the little girl wearing a bright yellow raincoat and tiny rain boots decorated with cartoon frogs. In her small hands, she clutched a paper bag that rattled with what sounded like crackers. "I brought bread for the duckies, Mommy," Luna announced proudly, then stopped when she noticed Nathaniel. "Oh, it's the man from your shop." "Yes, sweetheart." Elena's voice was carefully neutral. "This is Nathaniel. He wanted to come feed the ducks too." Luna studied him with the fearless curiosity of childhood. "Do you like ducks?" The simple question nearly undid him. Yes, I do. They're my friends," Luna declared with the absolute certainty of a 3-year-old, especially the one with the green head. "His name is Captain Quack." Despite everything, the pain, the regret, the years of absence, Nathaniel found himself smiling. "Captain Quack? He's very brave," Luna explained seriously. "He always protects the other ducks from the mean geese." As they walked toward the pond, Nathaniel caught glimpses of Elena's life in the small details. The way she automatically reached for Luna's hand near the water, the spare hair tie around her wrist, the practiced ease with which she navigated the stroller-crowded pathways. This was routine for them, a Saturday ritual built over years of mornings he'd missed. The pond was alive with ducks, geese and the occasional swan gliding serenely across the surface. Luna immediately ran to the water's edge, her excitement infectious. "Careful, baby," Elena called gently. "Remember our rule about staying where Mommy can see you." "I know, Mommy," Luna called back, but she obediently stayed well back from the edge. "She's very well behaved," Nathaniel observed quietly. Elena's smile was soft with maternal pride. "She has her moments like any kid, but yes, she's generally an angel. She had to be, really. It was just me and her for so long." The reminder of Elena's solitude hit him like a physical blow. While he'd been building his empire and attending therapy sessions to manage his complicated feelings about commitment, Elena had been raising their daughter alone. "Captain Quack! Captain Quack!" Luna's delighted squeal drew their attention. A large mallard with an iridescent green head had approached the shore, apparently recognizing his small benefactor. "He remembers me." Luna looked back at Elena and Nathaniel, her face radiant with joy. "See? We're best friends." She began tossing pieces of bread into the water with the focused determination of someone performing a very important task. Other ducks quickly joined the feast, creating a small flotilla of hopeful birds. "She comes here every Saturday?" Nathaniel asked. "Rain or shine." It started when she was barely walking. She'd toddle to the water's edge and just watch them swim. Elena's voice carried the warmth of countless precious memories. One day an elderly woman offered her some bread crusts and Luna was hooked. She insisted we bring duck food every week after that. Nathaniel watched his daughter, the word still felt foreign and wonderful, distribute bread with the serious concentration of a tiny philanthropist. Every movement she made, every expression that crossed her face, was a revelation. He could see himself in the stubborn set of her jaw when a particularly aggressive goose tried to steal Captain Quack's bread. He could see Elena in the gentle way she spoke to the birds as if they could understand every word. "Mr. Nathaniel," Luna called suddenly. "Come help me. The big goose is being mean." Mr. Nathaniel, his throat tightened with unexpected emotion. He knelt beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "What should we do?" he asked seriously, as if consulting with a military strategist. Luna considered this gravely. "We need to distract him. Geese like the crackers better than bread. Mommy taught me that." She handed him some crackers from her bag, her small fingers brushing his. The contact was electric. The first time he'd touched his daughter. "You throw them over there," Luna instructed, pointing to a spot several feet away. "I'll protect Captain Quack's bread." They worked in tandem, Nathaniel following Luna's lead as she orchestrated the duck feeding operation with the tactical precision of a general. When the aggressive goose was successfully lured away by crackers, Luna clapped her hands in triumph. "We did it! We saved Captain Quack! We make a good team," Nathaniel said, and meant it. Luna beamed up at him. "Do you want to be duck friends with me?" The innocence of the question, the easy acceptance in her voice, nearly broke him. I would love that. Good. Next time you can bring the special crackers. Mommy knows where to buy them. Next time. The casual assumption that there would be a next time filled him with hope and terror in equal measure. Elena had been watching their interaction with an unreadable expression. When Luna ran off to chase a butterfly that had landed near the water's edge, Elena moved closer to Nathaniel. She likes you, she said quietly. I like her too. The words felt inadequate for the tidal wave of love and protectiveness that had crashed over him in the last hour. Elena, she's incredible. You've done an amazing job. We've done an amazing job, Elena corrected gently. She might not know it yet, but she has your determination, your intelligence, the way she problem solves. She trailed off, watching Luna negotiate with a swan that wanted her remaining crackers. Sometimes I see you so clearly in her it takes my breath away. The confession hung between them, intimate and dangerous. I want to be part of this, Nathaniel said suddenly. Not just weekend visits or holidays. I want to be her father. Really be her father. Elena was quiet for a long moment. What about Clarissa? What about your engagement? The engagement. He'd barely thought about it since yesterday. Clarissa had texted twice this morning asking about rescheduling the florist appointment, but he'd ignored both messages. I don't know, he said honestly. Everything's changed since yesterday. Mommy, Mr. Nathaniel, look. Luna had made friends with the swan who was now eating crackers directly from her outstretched palm. Her face was luminous with wonder. Oh my goodness, Elena breathed, pulling out her phone to capture the moment. Luna, that's incredible. You're so gentle and patient. As Elena took pictures, Nathaniel found himself memorizing every detail of this moment. The way Luna's hair caught the morning light, the sound of her delighted laughter, the careful tenderness in her small hands as she fed the elegant bird. This was what he'd given up. This magic, this love, this connection to something pure and real. I need to tell her who I am, he said quietly to Elena. Not yet. Elena's response was immediate and firm. She needs time to get to know you first, to trust you, and you need time to understand what being her father actually means. I understand. Do you? Elena's green eyes challenged him. Do you understand that being a parent means showing up even when you're tired, even when you'd rather be somewhere else? It means putting someone else's needs before your own every single day. It means midnight fevers and tantrums in grocery stores and reading the same bedtime story 40 times because that's what she needs to feel safe. Each word was a gentle rebuke and a roadmap. I want to learn, he said simply. Luna bounded back to them, breathless and glowing. Did you see? The swan likes me. His name is Prince Featherworth. Prince Featherworth? Nathaniel repeated, charmed by her imagination. All swans are princes, Luna explained seriously. It's a rule. Of course it is. Nathaniel found himself grinning. What other rules should I know about? Luna launched into an elaborate explanation of park etiquette according to a 3-year-old. Always say please and thank you to the animals. Never chase the squirrels because they're having important meetings. And never ever step on the flowers because they have feelings. As she talked, gesturing animatedly with her small hands, Nathaniel felt something fundamental shift inside him. The love wasn't gradual or careful, it was immediate and overwhelming, like being struck by lightning. This was his daughter. This brilliant, compassionate, imaginative little person was his. When it was time to leave, Luna surprised him by reaching for his hand. Will you walk us to the gate, Mr. Nathaniel? Her tiny hand in his was warm and trusting, and Nathaniel had to blink back tears as they walked together. At the park entrance, Luna looked up at him with those familiar blue eyes. Are you coming to feed the ducks next week? Nathaniel looked at Elena, who nodded almost imperceptibly. If that's okay with you and your mommy. It's very okay, Luna declared. Captain Quack will be expecting you. As they parted ways, Nathaniel stood watching Elena and Luna disappear into the crowd of Saturday morning pedestrians. Luna skipped beside her mother, chattering about Prince Featherworth and Captain Quack and the new friend who helped save the bread. For the first time in 4 years, Nathaniel felt like he knew exactly where he belonged, and it had nothing to do with penthouse apartments or engagement parties or the perfectly controlled life he'd built to avoid exactly this kind of beautiful chaos. Nathaniel returned to his penthouse with duck food still clinging to his jacket, and Luna's laughter echoing in his ears. The sterile elegance of his apartment, all sharp angles and muted grays, Felt like stepping into a museum after spending the morning in a world painted in primary colors and innocent wonder. Clarissa was waiting in the living room, her posture rigid with barely contained fury. Wedding magazines lay scattered across the glass coffee table like evidence of a crime, and her laptop screen displayed what looked like vendor contracts and payment schedules. 3 hours, she said without looking up. I've been waiting for 3 hours. Nathaniel loosened his tie, the motion automatic but his thoughts still tangled in memories of tiny hands and trust freely given. I told you I needed time to think. Time to think? Clarissa finally raised her eyes, and they were ice cold. We have a wedding to plan, Nathaniel. The invitations go out next week. The plaza needs final headcount numbers. The florist is threatening to give our slot to someone else. The wedding. The thought felt surreal now, like discussing someone else's life. How could he stand at an altar and promise forever to Clarissa when his heart was currently residing in a 3-year-old's pocket, alongside duck crackers and butterfly wishes? Maybe we should postpone. Postpone? Clarissa stood so abruptly that her laptop nearly tumbled to the floor. Nathaniel, what the hell is going on? Yesterday you were fine. Today you're acting like you've never seen a wedding before in your life. He moved to the bar, more for something to do with his hands than any real desire for alcohol. Things have gotten complicated. Uncomplicate them. Her voice carried the sharp precision she used in depositions. Whatever this is about, fix it. Now. The demand rankled him. Fix it. As if Luna's existence was a problem to be solved rather than a miracle to be embraced. As if the love coursing through his veins was a malfunction instead of the most real thing he'd felt in years. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Clarissa moved closer, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. You're having cold feet. It's normal. Pre-wedding anxiety affects 70% of grooms. Pre-wedding anxiety. She was reducing the earthquake in his chest to a statistic. That's not what this is. Then what? Her voice rose slightly before she caught herself, smoothing back into the controlled tone she wore like armor. Help me understand, because from where I'm standing my fiancé disappeared yesterday, ignored my calls all night, and is now talking about postponing our wedding 3 weeks before the ceremony. Nathaniel set down his untouched glass and turned to face her fully. Clarissa was beautiful in the way expensive things were beautiful. Perfectly polished, strategically presented, designed to impress. But looking at her now, after spending the morning watching Elena's natural grace and Luna's unfiltered joy, felt like comparing a photograph to real life. The woman at the confectionery yesterday, he said carefully. We have a history. Something dangerous flickered in Clarissa's eyes. What kind of history? We were together for 2 years. It ended 4 years ago. And? The simple question carried so much weight. How could he explain that his entire foundation had shifted? That discovering Luna's existence hadn't just changed his perspective, it had obliterated everything he thought he knew about himself? She has a daughter. Congratulations to her. Clarissa's voice was arctic. What does that have to do with us? The daughter is mine. The words hung in the air like a live wire. Clarissa went very still, her face cycling through emotions too quickly to track. Shock, disbelief, calculation, and finally, rage. Yours. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, you have a child, a daughter, and you're just telling me this now? I just found out yesterday. Clarissa laughed, but there was no humor in it. You just found out. 3 weeks before our wedding, you discover you're a father, and you thought this was information you could just process quietly? I needed time. Time? She spun away from him, her perfectly styled hair swinging like a weapon. Time to what exactly? To figure out if fatherhood fits into your schedule? To determine if your secret child conflicts with our 5-year plan? The mockery in her voice ignited something hot and protective in his chest. She's not a secret. Elena tried to tell me when she was pregnant, and I didn't believe her. Elena. Clarissa tested the name like it tasted bitter. How convenient that she reappears just as we're about to get married. It wasn't convenient, it was coincidence. Was it? Clarissa's lawyer instincts were fully engaged now, her eyes sharp with suspicion. A woman with your alleged child shows up at the exact confectionery where we're ordering our engagement cake? That doesn't strike you as orchestrated. Elena owns the confectionery. She didn't know we'd be there. She owns it. Clarissa processed this information with visible distaste. How delightfully entrepreneurial of her. And now she's ready to cash in on the Nathaniel Rowe fortune. The accusation hit him like a slap. It's not about money. It's always about money, Nathaniel. Especially when billionaires are involved. Clarissa began pacing, her movements sharp and predatory. How much does she want? For child support? For her silence? For whatever sordid little arrangement she's proposing? She's not asking for anything. His voice was louder than intended, echoing off the stark walls. She's been supporting Luna alone for 3.5 years. She never asked me for a cent. Luna. Clarissa stopped pacing. You already know the child's name. I've met her. You've met her. The words came out flat and dangerous. When? This morning. At the park. Clarissa stared at him for a long moment, her face completely unreadable. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly quiet. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. Yesterday you discovered you have a daughter. Today, instead of discussing this earth-shattering revelation with your fiancé, you went to play daddy in the park, and now you're standing in our home telling me we should postpone our wedding because your ex-girlfriend has produced a convenient child. She's not convenient. She's my daughter. Allegedly. Definitely. The certainty in his own voice surprised him. She has my eyes, Clarissa. The same color, the same shape. She problem solves like I do. She has this way of tilting her head when she's thinking. Stop. Clarissa held up a hand, her composure finally cracking. Just stop. Do you hear yourself right now? You're describing a child you've known for one day like she's the center of your universe. Maybe she is. The admission hung between them like a grenade with the pin pulled out. Clarissa's face went through a series of micro-expressions. Hurt, rage, disbelief, and finally cold calculation. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. You're in love with her. With Luna? She's my daughter. With Elena. Clarissa's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. This isn't about the child, is it? This is about your unfinished business with the woman who got away. Nathaniel opened his mouth to deny it, but the words died in his throat, because Clarissa wasn't wrong. Seeing Elena again, watching her gentle strength with Luna, remembering the way she used to look at him like he hung the stars, it had awakened something he'd spent 4 years trying to bury. I see. Clarissa's voice was soft now, which was somehow more terrifying than her anger. Well, this is certainly illuminating. She moved to the coffee table and began gathering the wedding magazines with precise, violent movements. Clarissa? No. She didn't look at him. You don't get to speak right now. You don't get to explain or rationalize or try to make this okay. You just told me that you're in love with another woman 3 weeks before our wedding. A woman who conveniently has your child. I didn't say I was in love with her. You didn't have to. Clarissa stood, wedding magazines clutched to her chest like armor. Your face said it all. The way you talked about the child, about Elena, about your morning in the park. You were glowing, Nathaniel. Glowing in a way you never have when you talk about me. The observation hit him like a physical blow because it was true. When had he ever felt about Clarissa the way he'd felt watching Luna feed the ducks? When had his heart raced at the thought of seeing Clarissa the way it was racing now at the memory of Elena's smile? I think, Clarissa said with dangerous quiet, that this conversation is over. What does that mean? She looked at him like he was a particularly slow student. It means, my dear almost husband, that you need to figure out what you actually want. Because you can't have both. You can't have your perfect little family with Elena and Luna, and also have the life we've built together. Clarissa, please. Choose. The word was sharp and final. Because I won't be anyone's second choice, and I certainly won't play stepmother to the child of the woman you actually love. She moved toward the door, then paused without turning around. The engagement ring is on the kitchen counter. I'll have my things collected while you're at work on Monday. My lawyer will be in touch about the joint assets. You're ending our engagement? Clarissa finally turned back to him, and her smile was cold and beautiful and terrible. No, darling. You ended it the moment you chose to meet your daughter instead of planning your wedding. I'm just acknowledging reality. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow sounded like the end of the world. Nathaniel stood alone in his pristine apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of a life that had suddenly revealed itself to be built on sand. The engagement ring caught the afternoon light from where it lay on the kitchen counter, a small, expensive symbol of promises he'd apparently never meant to keep. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Luna wanted me to tell you that Captain Quack misses you already. Same time next Saturday? Nathaniel looked at the message, then at the engagement ring, then at his reflection in the darkened window. For the first time in 4 years, he could see himself clearly. He typed back, I'll be there, with extra crackers for Prince Featherworth. The response came immediately. He'll be honored. Luna's already planning his royal menu. Nathaniel found himself smiling despite the devastation surrounding him. Clarissa was right about one thing. He had chosen. He'd chosen the moment Luna's tiny hand slipped into his. He'd chosen when Elena's green eyes met his across the confectionery. He'd chosen love over safety, chaos over control, truth over convenience. And for the first time since he'd built this gilded cage around his life, he felt like he could breathe. Monday morning arrived like a reckoning. Nathaniel sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, staring at contracts that might as well have been written in Sanskrit. The numbers blurred together, meaningless symbols on a page, while his mind replayed Saturday's magic and Sunday's destruction on an endless loop. His assistant, Margaret, had been tiptoeing around him all morning, her usual efficiency dampened by his obvious distraction. The engagement announcement that had run in the Times business section 3 weeks ago was still framed on his desk. A photo of him and Clarissa at the Met Gala, both smiling the kind of practiced smiles that looked perfect in print, but had never quite reached their eyes. He turned the frame face down. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Luna drew you a picture of Captain Quack. She wants to show you next Saturday. Is that still okay?" The message was followed by a photo that made his chest constrict with emotion. A child's drawing in vibrant crayon showed a stick figure with brown hair standing next to a green duck. Above them, Luna had written in wobbly letters, "Mr. Nathaniel and Captain Quack." The misspelling made him smile despite the ache in his chest. His daughter had drawn him, had thought about him enough to put crayon to paper and create something just for him. He was typing a response when his office door burst open. "Sir?" Margaret's voice was high with concern. "I'm sorry, I tried to stop her, but..." Clarissa strode past Margaret like she owned the building, which, Nathaniel supposed, she partially did through their joint investments. She was immaculate as always, a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, her blonde hair swept into a chignon that looked effortless, but had likely taken an hour to perfect. "It's fine, Margaret. Thank you." Nathaniel's voice was steady, professional. Margaret hesitated, clearly sensing the undercurrents, but eventually withdrew, closing the door behind her. Clarissa moved to the windows overlooking Central Park, her posture rigid with controlled fury. "You look like hell. Good morning to you too." "Don't." She turned, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears that somehow made her look more dangerous, not more vulnerable. "Don't you dare try to be charming right now." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, studying the woman he'd planned to marry. Even in her anger, she was beautiful. Even in her pain, she was formidable. But looking at her now, he felt nothing but a dull sadness for what they'd both lost, and relief that they'd lost it before it was too late. "The Post wants a comment," Clarissa said without preamble, "about why the Von Rowe engagement has been called off 3 weeks before the wedding." Nathaniel's stomach dropped. "How did they find out?" "Vendors talk, Nathaniel. The plaza, the florist, the caterer. They all want to know why suddenly no one's returning their calls. And Stephanie Morrison saw me leaving here Saturday with my overnight bag. She's already called 3 of my friends wanting the real story." The Manhattan social scene was smaller than most people realized, and gossip traveled faster than stock tips. By now, half the Upper East Side would be speculating about what had destroyed the golden couple's fairy tale. "What did you tell them?" Clarissa's laugh was brittle. "What could I tell them? That my fiancé discovered he's a father 3 weeks before our wedding? That he's been playing house in Central Park with his ex-girlfriend while I planned our future?" Each word was surgical, designed to cut. But beneath the anger, Nathaniel heard something else. Hurt. Real, raw hurt that made his chest tighten with guilt. "Clarissa, I loved you." The words came out quietly, almost conversationally, which made them somehow more devastating. "Did you know that? I actually loved you. Not the idea of you. Not your money or your status or what marrying you would do for my career. You." The admission hit him like a physical blow. He'd told himself their relationship was mutual convenience, that they were both getting what they needed without the messiness of deep emotion. He'd never considered that Clarissa might have felt more than she'd shown. "I loved you too," he said quietly, and meant it. Not the consuming, desperate love he'd felt for Elena, but something real nonetheless. "No." Clarissa shook her head, her composure finally cracking. "You loved the idea of me. You loved how I fit into your life, how I never demanded more than you were willing to give, how I never made you feel things you weren't comfortable feeling." She was right, and they both knew it. "Elena makes you uncomfortable, doesn't she?" Clarissa continued, moving closer to his desk. "She makes you feel things you can't control, can't organize into neat little compartments. That's why you ran from her 4 years ago, and that's why you're running toward her now." "I'm not running, aren't you?" Clarissa placed her hands on his desk, leaning forward. You've thrown away our entire relationship for a woman who didn't trust you enough to convince you that you were a father. A woman who kept your child from you for 3.5 years. The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth that had been eating at him since Saturday. Elena had tried to tell him yes, but when he'd reacted badly, she'd disappeared completely. No second attempts, no DNA tests, no legal action. Just gone. She was protecting Luna, he said, but the words felt hollow even to him. Was she? Or was she protecting herself? Clarissa straightened, smoothing down her jacket. Have you asked yourself why she never tried again? Why she never sent a letter, never had a lawyer contact you, never did any of the things a woman typically does when the father of her child refuses to acknowledge paternity? Nathaniel hadn't asked himself those questions, but he was asking them now. Elena was smart, capable, determined. If she'd really wanted him to know about Luna, couldn't she have found a way? Maybe she was angry, he said weakly. Maybe she was relieved. Clarissa's voice was soft, almost pitying. Maybe having a billionaire baby daddy was inconvenient for the life she wanted to build. Maybe she was happy to play the martyr, the single mother who did it all on her own. That's not... He stopped himself because he didn't actually know what Elena had been thinking. He'd filled in the gaps with assumptions and guilt, but he'd never actually asked her why she'd given up so easily. You don't know, do you? Clarissa read his face with the skill that had made her one of New York's most feared litigators. You've built this whole romantic narrative about the woman who got away, but you don't actually know her anymore. You don't know what she's become, what she wants, what her motivations are. The words hit their mark because they were true. The Elena he'd fallen in love with 4 years ago had been passionate, impulsive, sometimes recklessly honest. The woman at the confectionery had been measured, careful, guarded. People changed. Circumstances changed them. The child is sweet, Clarissa continued, her voice gentling slightly. From what I could see, she's lovely. But Nathaniel, you can't build a relationship with Elena on guilt and nostalgia, and you can't assume that she wants you back just because you've suddenly decided you want her. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Elena. No pressure about Saturday. I know this is all overwhelming. We can take things as slowly as you need. The message was kind, understanding, and completely at odds with the woman who used to send him angry texts, demanding to know why he was working late again. This Elena was patient where the old Elena had been demanding, accommodating where she'd once been confrontational. Had she changed that much? Or had she simply learned to hide her real feelings better? I have to go, Clarissa said, gathering her purse. The movers will be here this afternoon for the rest of my things. Clarissa, wait. Nathaniel stood, moved around the desk. I'm sorry for all of this. You deserved better. She studied his face for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was sad but not unkind. Yes, I did. But you know what? So did you. We both deserved someone who looked at us the way you look when you talk about that little girl. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, I hope you figure out what you really want before you destroy something else. Because that child doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of whatever unfinished business you have with her mother. After Clarissa left, Nathaniel sat alone in his office staring at Luna's drawing. The stick figure version of himself looked happy, arms spread wide, smile crooked, but genuine. This was how his daughter saw him. Someone worth drawing, someone worth missing, someone worth including in her crayon world of ducks and princes and butterfly wishes. But Clarissa's words echoed in his mind. What did Elena really want? What did she see when she looked at him now? And most importantly, was he chasing a ghost of what they'd once had, or building something real and new? He picked up his phone and, instead of texting back about Saturday, typed something else. Can we talk? Just you and me without Luna. There are things I need to understand. The response came quickly. Of course. Coffee tomorrow morning? There's a place called Brew and Bean on Columbus. 8 a.m.? I'll be there. As Nathaniel turned back to his contracts, the words on the page seemed clearer somehow. Not because the numbers made more sense, but because for the first time in 4 years, he was ready to face the truth, whatever it might be, even if it destroyed the fairy tale he'd been telling himself about second chances and happily ever after. Especially then. Brew and Bean occupied the corner of Columbus Avenue like a warm embrace, its brick walls lined with local artwork and mismatched furniture that somehow created perfect harmony. Nathaniel arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the back corner where they could speak privately. his hands wrapped around a black coffee he didn't want, more for something to do than any real need for caffeine. When Elena walked through the door at exactly 8 o'clock, his breath caught the way it had 4 years ago. She wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders. Without Luna beside her, without the protective armor of motherhood, she looked younger, more like the woman he'd fallen in love with, and more like a stranger than ever. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, as she approached the table. Elena nodded, sliding into the chair across from him. "Luna's with my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. She babysits sometimes when I have early supplier meetings." The explanation was casual, but Nathaniel caught the underlying message. This is business. This isn't about us. "Coffee?" he offered, half rising. "I'll get it." Elena stood quickly, putting physical distance between them. "I know what I like here." As she moved to the counter, Nathaniel watched her interact with the barista, a easy familiarity that spoke of routine, of a life built in small moments he'd never been part of. This was Elena's world now, carved out in corners of Manhattan he'd never thought to explore. She returned with what looked like an elaborate latte, settling back into her chair with careful precision. Everything about her movements was measured, controlled. Where was the woman who used to gesture wildly when she told stories? Who used to steal French fries off his plate and argue passionately about movies he'd never heard of? "You said you needed to understand something," Elena prompted gently. Nathaniel set down his coffee, meeting her green eyes directly. "Why didn't you try again?" "I'm sorry. After that night, when I reacted so badly to the pregnancy news. You tried once. I was an ass. And then nothing. For 3.5 years, nothing. Why?" Elena's fingers tightened around her mug. "What would have been the point? The point would have been that I had a daughter, that maybe once I calmed down, once I had time to process, I might have reacted differently." "Might have." Elena's smile was sad and knowing. "But you didn't calm down, did you? You didn't process. You got engaged to Clarissa 6 months later." The observation hit him like a slap. He'd forgotten how quickly he'd moved on, or appeared to move on. 6 months after their devastating breakup, after rejecting Elena's pregnancy announcement, he'd been photographed at charity events with Clarissa, looking every inch the successful bachelor who'd moved on from his complicated past. "That wasn't about forgetting you," he said quietly. "Wasn't it?" Elena's voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. "Nathaniel, you told me I was lying about being pregnant. You told me to get out of your life, and then you immediately started dating a woman who was everything I wasn't. Blonde, polished. From your world, what exactly was I supposed to think? You were supposed to fight for us, for Luna." The words came out harsher than intended, and Elena flinched slightly. "Fight?" She set down her mug carefully. "Fight how? Take you to court? Demand a DNA test? Force you to be a father when you'd made it clear you didn't want to be?" "Yes. Maybe. I don't know." Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself, with her, with the entire situation. But something, anything other than just disappearing. Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. When she looked up, her eyes held a pain so deep it took his breath away. "You want to know why I didn't fight?" "Yes. Because I was 8 months pregnant, Nathaniel. 8 months. I was enormous, hormonal, terrified, and completely alone. And the man I loved, the man whose child I was carrying, looked me in the eye and told me I was lying." Her voice remained steady, but Nathaniel could hear the tremor underneath. "I didn't just lose you that night," Elena continued. "I lost my faith in my own judgment. I'd spent 2 years believing we had something real, something worth fighting for. In one conversation, you made me question everything I thought I knew about us." "Elena, I'm not finished." Her tone was firm, but not unkind. "You asked why I didn't try again. Here's why. Because you broke my heart so completely that I couldn't risk it happening again. Because I had a baby coming who was going to need me to be strong, and I couldn't afford to fall apart chasing after someone who didn't want me." Each word was a knife to his chest, precise and devastating. "So I made a choice," Elena said. "I chose Luna. I chose to build a life where she would be loved unconditionally, where she wouldn't have to wonder if her father wanted her, where she wouldn't grow up feeling like she was a burden or a mistake. She's not a mistake. I know that. But for 3.5 years I wasn't sure you did." The accusation hung between them like a live wire. Nathaniel wanted to deny it, but how could he? His actions had spoken louder than any words. "I was scared," he said finally. "So was I." Elena's voice softened slightly. But I didn't have the luxury of running away from my fear. I had to face it every day for 9 months, and then every day after that when I looked at Luna's face and saw yours looking back at me. She really looks like me? Devastatingly so. Elena's smile was rueful, especially when she's being stubborn. She gets this little crease between her eyebrows, just like you used to when you were working through a problem. The image of Luna with his expression made his chest tighten with longing and regret. "Can I ask you something now?" Elena said. "Anything. What do you want? From this? From us? From the situation? Because I need to know if you're here because you genuinely want to be Luna's father, or if you're here because you're feeling guilty about missing 3.5 years." The question was fair and brutal in its directness. "Both," Nathaniel admitted. "I want to be her father. I want to know everything about her, what makes her laugh, what scares her, how she takes her cereal in the morning. But yes, I also feel guilty. Devastatingly, overwhelmingly guilty." "Guilt isn't enough," Elena said quietly. "Luna doesn't need a father who shows up out of obligation. She needs someone who chooses her every day, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when she's 3 years old and having a meltdown in Target because I won't buy her a toy. I want to choose her. Every day. Even if it means disrupting your life, your career, your perfectly organized schedule." "My engagement is over." Elena's eyes widened slightly. "What?" "Clarissa and I. It's done. She ended it Saturday night, after I told her about Luna." "Nathaniel." Elena's voice was soft with what sounded like regret. "I'm sorry. I never meant for—" "Don't apologize." He leaned forward, needing her to understand. "It wasn't about you. Not directly. It was about me finally admitting that I was marrying the wrong woman for the wrong reasons. And what were the right reasons?" The question caught him off guard. "I don't know. Love, I suppose. Real love, not just compatibility." "And you think you love me?" Elena's voice was carefully neutral. "I think I never stopped loving you," Nathaniel said quietly. "I think I spent 4 years trying to convince myself I had. But seeing you again, Elena, you're all I can think about. You and Luna. Don't." Elena shook her head, her composure finally cracking. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Don't confuse your feelings for Luna with your feelings for me. Don't let guilt and regret make you think you want something you don't actually want." "How do you know what I want?" "Because I know you." Elena's voice was quiet but firm. "You want to fix this. You want to make everything okay, make up for lost time, prove that you're not the man who walked away. But Nathaniel, you can't love me back to 4 years ago. That version of us doesn't exist anymore. Then let's create a new version." Elena stared at him for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face. "You don't even know me anymore. The woman you think you love? She's gone. I'm not the same person I was before Luna. Then let me get to know who you are now." "Why?" The question was simple but loaded. "Because you feel obligated? Because it would be convenient for Luna to have her parents together? Because you're confusing nostalgia with actual emotion?" "Because I want to," he said simply. "Because sitting here with you, even having this difficult conversation, feels more real than anything I've experienced in 4 years." Elena's laugh was soft and sad. "You left your fiancé for a memory, Nathaniel. What happens when the reality doesn't live up to what you've built up in your head? What happens if it does?" The question hung between them, dangerous and full of possibility. Elena finished her coffee in one long swallow, then stood. "I need to get back to Luna. Elena, you can see her this Saturday at the park, like we planned. But Nathaniel," she paused, looking down at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Figure out what you really want before you make promises you might not be able to keep, because she's already drawn you into her world, and if you break her heart, you'll destroy something beautiful and innocent that can never be repaired." "And what about your heart?" he asked quietly. Elena's smile was heartbreaking in its sadness. "My heart learned to heal once, but Luna's has never been broken. Let's keep it that way." She walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Nathaniel, when you see her Saturday, ask her about her favorite color. It changes every week, but she has very strong opinions about why each one is the best." After she left, Nathaniel sat alone in the coffee shop, surrounded by the gentle hum of morning conversations and the smell of fresh pastry. Elena was right. He didn't know her anymore. The woman he'd fallen in love with 4 years ago had been replaced by someone stronger, more careful, more guarded. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe the woman she'd become was worth getting to know all over again, even if it meant starting from scratch. even if it meant proving he was worthy of a second chance he wasn't sure he deserved. Saturday morning painted Central Park in shades of gold and amber, autumn asserting itself with the kind of crisp beauty that made even New Yorkers pause to appreciate the world around them. Nathaniel arrived at Riverside Park with a bag full of premium duck crackers and a stomach full of nerves that had nothing to do with anxiety medication and everything to do with the little girl whose favorite color he was about to discover. Luna spotted him first, breaking away from Elena's side with the fearless enthusiasm of childhood. She wore bright purple leggings and a sunshine yellow sweater that somehow managed to coordinate perfectly with tiny sneakers that lit up when she walked. "Mr. Nathaniel, Mr. Nathaniel!" Her voice carried across the morning air like music. "I brought you something." She skidded to a stop in front of him, slightly breathless, clutching a folded piece of construction paper to her chest like treasure. "You did?" Nathaniel crouched down to her eye level, struck again by how perfectly her blue eyes mirrored his own. "What is it?" "Close your eyes," Luna commanded with the imperious authority of someone accustomed to having her wishes obeyed. Nathaniel glanced at Elena, who had approached more slowly, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She was wearing jeans and a forest green jacket that brought out the color of her eyes, looking more relaxed than she had at the coffee shop. "She's been working on this all week," Elena said softly. "Close your eyes, Nathaniel. Trust her." He closed his eyes and immediately felt small fingers pressing the paper into his hands. "Okay, open." Nathaniel opened his eyes and looked down at what might have been the most beautiful piece of art he'd ever seen. Luna had drawn them together again, but this time the stick figures were more elaborate. There was Captain Quack, still proudly green, and Prince Featherworth in elegant white. But beside them stood 3 figures holding hands, a tall one with brown hair, a medium one with red hair, and a small one with dark hair and what appeared to be a yellow sweater. At the top, in careful preschool lettering, Luna had written, "My family at the park." The words hit him like lightning. Family. She'd drawn them as a family. "Do you like it?" Luna asked anxiously, suddenly uncertain in the face of his speechless reaction. "Luna?" Nathaniel's voice was rough with emotion. "This is the most beautiful picture I've ever seen." Her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? Mommy helped me spell family, but I did all the drawing myself. You're an incredible artist." He studied the picture more carefully, noticing details that made his chest ache with tenderness. "Is that your yellow sweater?" "Uh-huh. It's my favorite yellow. This week, yellow is my favorite color because it's happy and sunshine and duck feet and corn on the cob and Luna." She giggled at her own joke. "Luna means moon, but I like yellow better than white." Elena laughed, and the sound was like hearing a song he'd forgotten he loved. "Last week it was purple because it was royal and mysterious and grape popsicles." "And next week?" Nathaniel asked Luna seriously. "Maybe orange," Luna mused, tilting her head in the gesture that was purely his. "Or maybe green like Captain Quack. Or maybe blue like—" She stopped, studying his face with sudden intensity. "Like your eyes. And my eyes." "We have the same eyes, don't we, Mr. Nathaniel?" The observation was innocent but loaded with possibility. Nathaniel glanced at Elena, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "We do have the same eyes," he said carefully. "What do you think that means?" Luna considered this with the seriousness of a philosopher. "Maybe it means we're supposed to be friends. Special friends who see things the same way." "I'd like that very much," Nathaniel said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. "Come on." Luna grabbed his hand with easy familiarity. "Captain Quack is waiting, and I brought extra special crackers for Prince Featherworth because royalty needs proper food." As they walked toward the pond, Nathaniel felt Luna's small hand in his larger one and experienced something he'd never felt before, a kind of love so fierce and protective it was almost frightening. This was what fathers felt, he realized. This overwhelming need to keep her safe, to make her happy, to be worthy of her trust. "She's been talking about you all week," Elena said quietly, falling into step beside them. "Every day, she asks if it's Saturday yet, if you're coming to see Captain Quack, if you remember about the royal crackers." "Did you tell her about coffee?" Nathaniel asked, keeping his voice low. "I told her we had grown-up things to discuss. She suggested we could discuss them while feeding the ducks next time because ducks are good listeners and they don't interrupt." Despite everything, the tension, the uncertainty, the complicated mess of their past, Nathaniel found himself laughing. "She's wise. She's 3.5, Elena corrected, but her tone was fond. "She just hasn't learned that the world is complicated yet." At the pond, Luna immediately launched into what appeared to be a well-rehearsed routine. She greeted Captain Quack by name, introduced Nathaniel to several other ducks she'd apparently befriended over the weeks, and began distributing food with the focused attention of a diplomat hosting a peace summit. "That one's Duchess Paddlefoot," she informed Nathaniel, pointing to a brown duck with distinctive white markings. "She's very fancy but also very hungry. And that one's Sir Splashington. He's Prince Featherworth's best friend." Nathaniel found himself completely absorbed in Luna's elaborate mythology, asking questions about duck politics and royal hierarchies with the seriousness her world deserved. When a particularly aggressive goose tried to steal food from the smaller ducks, Luna appointed Nathaniel as head of goose management, a title he accepted with appropriate gravity. "You're good at this," Elena observed after they'd successfully negotiated a peace treaty between the geese and ducks. "At what?" "Being present, following her lead. A lot of adults try to impose their own ideas on kids, but you're letting her teach you." The compliment meant more to him than any business deal he'd ever closed. "She's an excellent teacher," Nathaniel said, watching Luna attempt to have a serious conversation with Prince Featherworth about proper swimming techniques. "Where did she learn to be so confident, so sure of herself?" Elena's smile was soft with maternal pride. "She had to be. It was just me and her for so long, and I was learning as I went. She became my little partner in figuring everything out. That must have been hard, on both of you. Some days." Elena's honesty surprised him. "Some days I felt like I was failing at everything. But Luna, she made me want to be better, stronger. She made me believe I could handle anything." "You did handle everything. Look at her." Nathaniel gestured to Luna, who was now attempting to teach a swan the proper way to curtsy. "She's incredible, Elena. Happy, confident, creative, kind. You did that." "We did that," Elena corrected quietly. "She has your problem-solving skills, your intensity when she's focused on something. She has your way of tilting her head when she's thinking. And she has your kindness, your imagination, the way you used to make up stories about strangers we saw on the street." Elena looked at him sharply. "You remember that?" "I remember everything about us," Nathaniel said quietly. "Even the things I tried to forget." They were interrupted by Luna's delighted squeal. Prince Featherworth had apparently mastered the curtsy to her satisfaction, and she was clapping her hands in celebration. "Mr. Nathaniel, Mommy, did you see? Prince Featherworth said thank you for the royal crackers." "I saw," Nathaniel called back, then lowered his voice to Elena. "Are all swans this polite, or is Prince Featherworth special?" "According to Luna, he's the most well-mannered swan in all of New York," Elena replied seriously. "Last week she wrote him a thank you note for being such a good friend. I had to help her mail it to Prince Featherworth, the Big Pond, Central Park." "You mailed it?" "Of course I mailed it. When your daughter writes her first letter, you mail it, even if it's to a swan." The casual way Elena said "your daughter" made his chest tighten with emotion. For a moment it felt almost normal, like they were just parents, sharing stories about their child's imagination and innocence. "Mommy!" Luna bounded over to them, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Can we show Mr. Nathaniel the secret place?" Elena hesitated. "Sweetheart, I'm not sure." "Please? He's part of our park family now. He should know about all our special places." Nathaniel looked at Elena questioningly, but she was already sighing in defeat. "The secret place," she explained, "is Luna's favorite spot in the park. She discovered it a few months ago, and it's become, well, you'll see." Luna grabbed both their hands, positioning herself between them, and began leading them away from the pond. "Close your eyes again," she commanded. "It's not secret if you see how to get there." Nathaniel found himself walking blind, guided by a 3-year-old and the woman he'd never stopped loving, through paths he couldn't see toward a destination he couldn't imagine. Luna chattered the entire way, providing a running commentary on obstacles. "Step up here, Mr. Nathaniel, there's a big route. And progress. We're almost there. It's going to be so magical." When she finally told them to open their eyes, Nathaniel found himself in a small grove tucked away from the main paths, where someone had clearly been gardening unofficially. Wildflowers bloomed in careful abundance, and a fallen log had been positioned perfectly for sitting and watching the world go by. "This is it," Luna announced proudly. "This is where I come to think about important things, and where Mommy brings her sketchbook sometimes, and where we have picnics when it's too crowded by the pond." It was private, peaceful, and completely magical in the way only a child could recognize. "Luna," Nathaniel said seriously, "thank you for sharing your secret place with me." "You're welcome," Now you can come here when you need to think about important things too. What important things do you think about, Mr. Nathaniel? The question was innocent, but it cut straight to the heart of everything he was struggling with. Lately, he said honestly, I think about how to be the kind of person who deserves to be in beautiful places like this. Luna nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense. That's easy. You just have to be kind to ducks and swans and say please and thank you and share your crackers. Is that all? And you have to be nice to people's feelings, Luna added seriously. Especially mommies. Mommies have very important feelings. Nathaniel glanced at Elena, who was looking determinedly at the wildflowers, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. You're absolutely right, Nathaniel said to Luna. Mommies do have very important feelings. The most important, Luna agreed solemnly. That's why I always give Mommy extra hugs when she looks sad. When does Mommy look sad? Nathaniel asked gently. Luna considered this carefully. Sometimes at night when she thinks I'm sleeping, I hear her sigh, very big sighs. And sometimes when we walk past the fancy cake shops, she gets that faraway look. But mostly she's happy, especially when we're here in our secret place. Elena cleared her throat. I think we should head back. Someone has a lunch date with Mrs. Patterson, and she's making grilled cheese. With the good cheese? Luna's attention immediately shifted to more pressing matters. With the very good cheese. As they walked back toward the park entrance, Luna skipped ahead, leaving Nathaniel and Elena to walk together in comfortable silence. Thank you, Nathaniel said quietly. For what? For letting me into this. Into her world. Into whatever this is we're building. Elena was quiet for a moment. She likes you. Really likes you. And that terrifies me. Why? Because if you decide this is too hard, if you decide you don't actually want to be a father, if you disappear again. Elena stopped walking, turning to face him. It would destroy her, Nathaniel. And I don't think I could put her back together again. I'm not going anywhere, he said firmly. Elena, I know I have to prove that. I know words aren't enough after everything that's happened, but I'm not going anywhere. People say that, and then life gets complicated, and priorities shift, and look at me. Nathaniel stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever it takes to prove that to you, to her, I'll do it. Elena searched his face for a long moment. She drew us as a family, Nathaniel. In her mind, we're already there. But families aren't just about shared DNA or good intentions. They're about showing up every day, even when it's hard. I want to show up. Even when she's sick and cranky and throws a tantrum because her socks feel weird. Especially then. Even when I'm exhausted and short-tempered and not the woman you fell in love with 4 years ago. The question hung between them, loaded with vulnerability and hope. Especially then, Nathaniel repeated softly. Elena studied his face for another long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but Nathaniel, if you're going to be part of this, really part of this, there can't be any more secrets. No more half-truths or careful omissions. Luna deserves honesty, even when it's complicated. Agreed. When do we tell her who I really am? Elena glanced ahead to where Luna was attempting to befriend a squirrel. Soon, but not today. Today was about colors and crackers and secret places. Let her have today. As they reached the park exit, Luna ran back to them, slightly out of breath but glowing with happiness. Next Saturday? She asked hopefully. Same time? Same ducks? Same time? Same ducks, Nathaniel confirmed. But Luna? Maybe next week you can show me more of your favorite colors. I'd like to learn about all of them. All of them? Luna's eyes widened with delight. That might take a very long time, Mr. Nathaniel. I know a lot about colors. I have time, he said simply. All the time in the world. As Elena and Luna walked away, Luna's voice drifted back to him. Mommy, do you think Mr. Nathaniel would like to see my butterfly collection? And my rock garden? And the place where I found the heart-shaped leaf? Elena's response was too quiet to hear, but Nathaniel found himself smiling as he watched them disappear into the afternoon crowd. For the first time since this all began, he didn't feel like he was chasing the past. He felt like he was building the future. Thursday started like any ordinary day until Nathaniel's phone rang at 2:47 p.m., with Elena's name on the screen and panic in her voice. Nathaniel? Her words came out breathless, strained. I know this isn't. I don't know who else to call. Luna's in the hospital. The world tilted on its axis. Nathaniel was on his feet before he'd consciously decided to move, already reaching for his jacket. What happened? Is she okay? Which hospital? Mount Sinai. She fell at preschool during playground time, hit her head on the monkey bars. They think she might have a concussion and Elena's voice cracked. There's blood, and she keeps asking for you. She keeps saying she wants Mr. Nathaniel to make the scary things go away. I'm coming. Now. Elena, are you okay? I'm scared, Elena whispered. And in those 2 words, Nathaniel heard the echoes of every nightmare a parent could face. I'm so scared, and I don't know what I'm doing. And she's so little and… Breathe, Nathaniel said, already in the elevator, pressing the garage button with more force than necessary. I'm 10 minutes away. She's going to be fine. Kids are resilient, Elena. She's going to be fine. He wasn't sure if he was reassuring her or himself. Traffic was brutal, and Nathaniel found himself doing things he'd never done. Running red lights, taking shoulders, honking at pedestrians. Every second felt like an eternity when Luna was hurt and scared and asking for him. The thought was both heartwarming and terrifying. When had he become someone she turned to in crisis? When had he become important enough in her small world that she wanted him when everything felt scary? Mount Sinai's pediatric emergency department was controlled chaos. Crying children, exhausted parents, medical staff moving with purposeful efficiency. Nathaniel found Elena in the waiting area, still wearing her flour-dusted apron from the confectionery, her auburn hair escaping its bun in stressed wisps. She looked up when he approached, and the relief in her green eyes nearly brought him to his knees. Thank God, she breathed, and then she was in his arms, shaking against his chest. I couldn't reach Mrs. Patterson, and my parents are in Oregon, and I didn't know who else would come. The admission hit him harder than any declaration of love could have. She'd called him not because she had to, but because in her moment of deepest fear, he was the person she trusted to help carry the weight. Where is she? He asked gently, rubbing soothing circles on Elena's back the way he used to when she had nightmares. They took her for a CT scan, room 14, but Nathaniel… Elena pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with tears. She doesn't know you're her father yet, but when she woke up after the fall, the first thing she asked for was you. Not her favorite stuffed animal, not her blanket, you. Before Nathaniel could respond, a nurse approached them. Ms. Whitaker, Luna's back from imaging. She's asking for her mommy and someone called Mr. Nathaniel. That's me, Nathaniel said immediately. The nurse led them through double doors into the pediatric ward, where Luna lay in a hospital bed that made her look impossibly small. Her dark hair was matted with dried blood on one side, and there was a butterfly bandage covering a cut on her forehead. But her blue eyes, his blue eyes, were alert and immediately brightened when she saw them. Mr. Nathaniel. Her voice was smaller than usual but filled with relief. You came. I knew you would come. Of course I came, sweetheart. Nathaniel approached the bed carefully, his heart breaking at how fragile she looked, surrounded by medical equipment. How are you feeling? My head hurts, Luna admitted, reaching out with a small hand that had an IV taped to it. And the doctors keep asking me questions, and I don't like the lights, and everything smells like cleaning stuff. I know, baby. Elena moved to the other side of the bed, smoothing Luna's hair away from the bandage with infinite tenderness. But the doctors are just making sure you're okay. Mr. Nathaniel, Luna said seriously, can you tell my head to stop hurting? You're good at fixing things. The innocent request shattered something in Nathaniel's chest. She thought he could fix anything. She trusted him with that kind of faith. I wish I could, Luna, he said gently, taking her small hand in his. But the doctors here are much better at fixing hurt heads than I am. I'm only good at fixing business things. What kind of business things? Luna asked, apparently deciding that conversation was preferable to focusing on her pain. Well, Nathaniel said, settling into the chair beside her bed. I help people build houses and stores and places where families can live and work. Do you build playgrounds? Luna's eyes widened with interest despite her discomfort. Sometimes. Can you build me a playground that doesn't have mean monkey bars? Elena laughed despite her tears, and Nathaniel found himself grinning. I think that could be arranged. A doctor entered, a kind-faced woman in her 50s with graying hair and gentle hands. Luna, I'm Dr. Martinez. I have some very good news. Is my head going to be okay? Luna asked seriously. Your head is going to be perfectly fine, Dr. Martinez confirmed, consulting her tablet. The CT scan shows no serious damage. You have a mild concussion, which means you bumped your brain a little bit, but it's going to heal completely. What about the blood? Elena asked, her voice still tight with concern. Head wounds always bleed more than they should. Dr. Martinez explained kindly. It looks much scarier than it actually is. The cut will heal in a few days and the concussion symptoms should resolve within a week. She'll need rest, limited screen time, and monitoring for any changes in behavior, but she's going to be completely fine. The relief was so profound that Nathaniel felt his knees go weak. Luna was okay. His daughter was okay. Can I go home now? Luna asked hopefully. In a little while, Dr. Martinez said. We want to observe you for another hour or two just to be safe. But yes, you can go home today. After the doctor left, Luna looked between Elena and Nathaniel with the serious expression she wore when contemplating important matters. Mr. Nathaniel? She said finally. Yes, sweetheart? Are you going to stay with me and Mommy until my head is all better? The question was innocent, but it carried weight that made Elena go very still beside the bed. This was the moment. The opening they'd been waiting for to tell Luna the truth. Luna, Elena said gently, Mr. Nathaniel and I need to tell you something important. Is it scary important or happy important? Luna asked with the wisdom of someone who'd learned that adult conversations could go either way. It's happy important, Nathaniel said, though his heart was racing. Luna, do you remember how we talked about having the same eyes? Uh-huh. Same blue, same shape, same thinking face. Well, sometimes when people have the same eyes and the same thinking face, it's because they're related. Like how you and Mommy both have the same nose. Luna studied his face intently, then looked at Elena, then back at him. Related how? Elena took a shaky breath. Sweetheart, Mr. Nathaniel is your daddy. The words hung in the air of the hospital room, surrounded by the quiet beeping of monitors and the distant sounds of the busy ward. Luna blinked slowly, processing this information with the careful consideration she applied to all new concepts. My daddy? She repeated quietly. Yes, Nathaniel said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm your daddy, Luna. I've been your daddy since the day you were born, even though I didn't know about you until very recently. Where were you before? Luna asked, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. It was the question Nathaniel had been dreading, but also the one he was most prepared to answer honestly. I was far away, he said simply, not because I didn't want to be with you, but because Mommy and I had some grown-up problems, and I didn't know you existed. But as soon as I found out about you, I wanted to be part of your life. Luna was quiet for a long moment, her blue eyes, their blue eyes, moving between Elena and Nathaniel as she processed this revelation. So that's why you're so good at duck feeding, she said finally, and why you understand about Prince Featherworth being royal, and why you knew the goose management rules without me having to teach you very much. Exactly, Nathaniel said, fighting back tears at her perfect 3-year-old logic. And that's why you came when I was hurt, Luna continued. Because daddies come when their little girls are hurt. Always, Nathaniel said firmly. Daddies always come. Luna nodded seriously, then looked at Elena. Mommy, does this mean I have a daddy now? Like really have one, not just wish I had one? The question broke Elena's composure completely. Tears streamed down her face as she leaned down to kiss Luna's forehead. Yes, baby. You really have a daddy now. Good, Luna said with satisfaction. I was getting tired of being the only one in my preschool class without a daddy story for Father's Day projects. The matter-of-fact way she accepted the news was both heartbreaking and beautiful. To Luna, this wasn't a complication. It was simply the completion of something she'd been missing. Luna, Nathaniel said carefully, how do you feel about this? About me being your daddy? Luna considered this seriously, tilting her head in the gesture that was purely his. I feel happy, she said finally. And I feel like maybe this is why I loved you so fast when we first met at Mommy's shop. Maybe my heart knew before my brain did. Maybe it did, Nathaniel agreed, his voice thick with emotion. Daddy, Luna said experimentally, testing the word. Yes? When we go home, will you read me a story? Mommy always reads me stories when I don't feel good, but now I have 2 people who can read me stories. I would love to read you a story, Luna. And will you teach me about building things? Since you're good at building and I'm good at imagining, we could build amazing things together. And will you help me take care of Captain Quack and Prince Featherworth? Because duck families need people families to look after them. Absolutely. Luna smiled, the first real smile since the accident, and Nathaniel felt his entire world shift into place. This was what he'd been missing. This easy acceptance, this uncomplicated love, this sense of belonging somewhere. Daddy? Luna said again, clearly enjoying the word. Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're my daddy, and I'm really glad you came when I was scared. Nathaniel leaned down and kissed her forehead gently, careful of the bandage. I'm glad too, Luna. And I promise you, from now on, whenever you're scared or hurt or happy or anything at all, I'll be here. Promise? Promise. Elena watched this exchange with tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of relief and joy rather than fear. This was what she'd dreamed of but never dared hope for. Luna having a father who loved her completely, unconditionally, without reservation. You know what? Luna announced suddenly. I think this is the best day ever. Even though I hit my head, how can it be the best day if you got hurt? Elena asked gently. Because, Luna said with the profound wisdom of childhood, sometimes the best things happen after the scary things, like finding out you have everything you didn't know you were missing. Nathaniel looked at Elena over Luna's head, and in her green eyes, he saw the same revelation. Luna wasn't the only one who'd found what she was missing. They all had. The next week passed like a gentle revolution. Nathaniel had taken time off work, something that would have been unthinkable a month ago, to help with Luna's recovery. He spent his days at Elena's apartment above the confectionery, reading stories, building elaborate block castles, and learning the intricate rules of 3-year-old logic. Elena's apartment was nothing like his sterile penthouse. It was warm chaos, crayons scattered on coffee tables, children's books stacked in every corner, finger paintings magneted to a refrigerator that hummed contentedly in the background. Luna's artwork covered every available wall space, transforming the small space into a gallery of imagination and unconditional love. Daddy, Luna called from her nest of pillows on the living room floor, where she was supposed to be resting but was instead directing an elaborate tea party for her stuffed animals. Mr. Elephant says his tea is too cold, but Miss Giraffe says hers is too hot. How do we fix that? Nathaniel looked up from the laptop where he'd been attempting to answer emails while simultaneously monitoring Luna for concussion symptoms. Have you tried asking them to share? Maybe Mr. Elephant's cold tea and Miss Giraffe's hot tea could become perfectly warm tea if they mixed them together. Luna's face lit up with delight. That's brilliant. Daddy, you're very smart about tea problems. From the kitchen came the sound of Elena's soft laughter, and Nathaniel felt that now familiar warmth spread through his chest. Daddy. The word still caught him off guard every time Luna said it, still made him want to prove worthy of the title. How's the patient doing? Elena appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel that read, Kiss the Cook in faded letters, bossing around her stuffed animals and solving complex beverage temperature issues. Nathaniel reported. I'd say she's feeling much better. I can hear you talking about me, Luna announced with mock indignation. And for your information, I am conducting very important business meetings with my animal friends. My apologies, CEO Luna, Elena said seriously. We didn't mean to interrupt your important negotiations. Luna giggled, then grew more serious. Mommy, is Daddy going to keep staying with us, even after my head is all better? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Nathaniel had been sleeping on Elena's couch for 3 nights, close enough to help if Luna needed anything during the night. But the arrangement felt both temporary and loaded with unspoken possibilities. That's... Elena glanced at Nathaniel, uncertainty flickering in her green eyes. That's something Daddy and I need to talk about. Adult talk? Luna asked with the resignation of someone familiar with being excluded from grown-up conversations. Adult talk, Elena confirmed. Fine, Luna sighed dramatically. But can you do your adult talk while I have my quiet time? Because I don't want to miss anything interesting. An hour later, after Luna had been settled for her afternoon rest with a pile of books and strict instructions to stay horizontal, Nathaniel and Elena found themselves alone in the kitchen. It was the first time they'd been truly alone since the hospital, and the air between them crackled with unresolved tension. Coffee? Elena offered, already reaching for mugs. Please. Nathaniel watched her move around the small kitchen with practiced efficiency. She knew exactly where everything belonged in this space she'd created for herself and Luna. This was her domain, her sanctuary, and he was still very much a guest. She's incredible, he said as Elena handed him a steaming mug. Elena, what you've done with her, the person she's becoming, it's extraordinary. We did it together, Elena corrected, settling into the chair across from him at the small table. Even when you weren't here, she carried parts of you. Your stubbornness, your problem-solving skills, your way of making everything seem possible. I missed so much. The admission came out rougher than he intended. Her first words, first steps, first birthday. I missed Christmas mornings and bedtime stories and doctor's appointments. I missed her learning to tie her shoes and count to 10 and Nathaniel. Elena's voice was gentle but firm. You can't change the past. Trust me, I've tried. But you can choose what happens next. What do I choose? He leaned forward, studying her face. Elena, I want to be part of this. Part of Luna's life, part of your life. But I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what you want from me. Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee as if it held answers to questions she wasn't sure she wanted to ask. 4 years ago, she said finally, I would have said I wanted forever. Marriage, more children, growing old together, the whole fairy tale. But now I want someone who shows up, someone who doesn't run when things get complicated or scary or different from what they planned. She looked up, meeting his eyes. I want someone who loves Luna not because she's convenient or adorable, but because she's his daughter, unconditionally, imperfectly, completely. And what about you? Nathaniel asked quietly. What do you want for yourself? Elena's smile was sad and beautiful. I stopped asking myself that question a long time ago. When Luna was born, I learned to want what was best for her, and everything else became secondary. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Elena stood, moving to the window that overlooked the small garden behind the building. Nathaniel, I can't go back to being the woman who lived for someone else's attention. I can't be the Elena who waited by the phone and analyzed every text message and wondered if you really meant it when you said you loved me. I did mean it. I know, but meaning it wasn't enough, was it? You loved me, but you loved your control more. You loved me, but not enough to fight for us when things got hard. The words stung because they were true. I was scared, Nathaniel said. Terrified, actually. What we had was so intense, so consuming. I'd never felt anything like it, and I didn't know how to handle it. So you handled it by walking away. So I handled it by walking away, he agreed, and I've regretted it every single day since. Elena turned from the window to face him. Regret isn't enough either, Nathaniel. Good intentions aren't enough. I need to know that if things get difficult again, and they will get difficult, you won't run. I need to know that you're choosing this life not because you feel guilty or nostalgic, but because you genuinely want it. I do want it. He stood, moving closer to her, but careful not to invade her space. Elena, these past few days being here with you and Luna, it's the first time in 4 years that I've felt like myself, the real version of myself, not the careful, controlled person I became. And what happens when the novelty wears off? When Luna has tantrums and I'm stressed about bills and we disagree about parenting decisions? What happens when this stops feeling like a fairy tale and starts feeling like real life? Then we figure it out together. Nathaniel reached for her hands, relieved when she didn't pull away. Elena, I know I have to earn your trust. I know I can't just show up and expect you to believe that I've changed. But I'm not the same man who walked away 4 years ago. How do I know that? Because the man I was 4 years ago would have hired a nanny and set up a trust fund and seen Luna on weekends. He would have tried to solve everything with money and lawyers and careful scheduling. Nathaniel's thumbs traced gentle circles across Elena's knuckles. But I don't want to be Luna's weekend father. I want to be the person she calls when she's scared. The one who knows how she likes her pancakes cut and what story helps her fall asleep. I want to be here for the mundane moments, not just the milestone ones. And what about us? Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want from us? I want to fall in love with who you are now, not who you used to be. I want to learn about the woman who turned a devastating betrayal into a successful business, who raised an incredible daughter alone, who built this beautiful life from nothing but determination and love. Nathaniel stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. I want to earn the right to be part of the story you're still writing. Elena searched his face for a long moment, and Nathaniel held his breath, waiting for her verdict. There are rules, she said finally. Okay. Luna comes first, always. If there's a choice between what she needs and what we want, she wins. Agreed. No secrets, no half-truths, no protecting me from difficult conversations because you think I can't handle them. Agreed. And Nathaniel? Elena's voice was soft but serious. If you break her heart, if you make promises you don't keep, if you let her down the way you let me down 4 years ago, I will never forgive you, and you will lose us both forever. I understand. Do you? Because she adores you already. She talks about you constantly. She started planning activities for when Daddy comes home and drawing pictures of our family. She's all in, Nathaniel, in the way only children can be. And if you hurt her, I won't. Nathaniel cupped Elena's face gently in his hands. Elena, I swear to you I will never hurt her. I will never let her down. And I will spend every day proving that I deserve to be her father. And what about being my... Elena trailed off, uncertainty flickering across her features. Your what? I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know what we are or what we're becoming or if we're making a terrible mistake. Then let's find out together. Nathaniel leaned his forehead against hers, breathing in her familiar scent of vanilla and warmth. Elena, I don't need to know what we're calling this. I just need to know that you're willing to try. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. Good, Elena said, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Maybe being scared means we're taking it seriously this time. Maybe it does. They stood there in the afternoon light filtering through Elena's kitchen window, holding each other carefully, like something precious that had been broken once and might break again. But this time, Nathaniel thought, they would be more careful with each other's hearts. This time, they would build something meant to last. Mommy! Daddy! Luna's voice called from the living room. My quiet time is over and I have very important things to tell you about my book. Elena and Nathaniel looked at each other and smiled, the first real, uncomplicated smile they'd shared since this all began. Coming, sweetheart, Elena called back. As they walked toward the living room, toward Luna's excited chatter about talking animals and magical kingdoms, Nathaniel felt something settle in his chest. This was what home felt like. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and warm and full of love. And for the first time in 4 years, that was exactly where he wanted to be. 3 months had passed since the hospital, and their little family had found a rhythm that felt both natural and miraculous. Nathaniel had unofficially moved into Elena's apartment, though his penthouse remained a symbol of the life he'd left behind. Sterile, expensive, and empty of everything that mattered. It was a crisp December morning when everything changed again. Nathaniel was in Elena's kitchen, attempting to master the art of heart-shaped pancakes, Luna's latest breakfast obsession, when his phone rang. The caller ID made his blood run cold. Harrison Mills, senior partner at his investment firm and the man who controlled Nathaniel's entire professional future. Roe. Harrison's voice was clipped, businesslike, and utterly unforgiving. We need to talk. My office. 1 hour. Harrison, what's this about? The Millennium Project. Your little domestic situation has compromised the biggest deal of our careers, and I'm not sure the firm can survive your distraction. The line went dead. Nathaniel stared at his phone, Elena's cheerful kitchen suddenly feeling fragile around him. The Millennium Project, a $2 billion sustainable housing development, was his baby, the culmination of 5 years of negotiations and planning. It was also the project that would define his legacy in the industry. Daddy, you're burning my pancakes, Luna observed from her booster seat, her tone matter-of-fact. Sorry, sweetheart. Nathaniel quickly flipped the pancakes, but his mind was racing. What had Harrison meant by domestic situation? How could Luna and Elena possibly compromise a business deal? Everything okay? Elena asked, appearing in the doorway with concern written across her face. I'm not sure. Nathaniel served Luna her slightly overcooked heart pancakes. I have to go to the office, something about the Millennium Project. Elena's expression tightened. She'd learned enough about his business to know how crucial this deal was. Is it serious? I don't know, but I'll find out. An hour later, Nathaniel sat in Harrison Mills's mahogany-paneled office, facing the man who held his career in his hands. Harrison was 62, silver-haired, and had the kind of presence that could make senators nervous. Today, he looked like he was preparing for war. Nathaniel, Harrison began without preamble, the Yamamoto Group is threatening to pull out of the Millennium Project. Nathaniel felt the floor drop out from under him. The Yamamoto Group was their primary investor. Without them, the entire development would collapse. Why? Because apparently your personal life has become a liability. Harrison slid a tablet across the desk. Read. The screen displayed a gossip column from Manhattan Social, complete with photographs that made Nathaniel's stomach clench. There he was, leaving Elena's building early in the morning. There was Luna, clearly identifiable, holding his hand in Central Park. The headline read, Billionaire's Secret Family. Love Child Scandal Rocks, Investment World. The Yamamoto Group values discretion and traditional family structures above all else, Harrison continued coldly. The idea that their business partner is living in sin with his illegitimate child's mother is problematic for them. Luna isn't illegitimate, she's my daughter. A daughter you abandoned for 3 years, according to this article. A daughter whose mother you're now shacked up with in some sordid reunion tour. Harrison's voice was cutting. Nathaniel, this makes you look unstable, unreliable, morally compromised. These are not qualities the Yamamoto Group associates with sound business partnerships. Nathaniel read through the article, his anger building with every word. The piece painted Elena as an opportunistic single mother who'd trapped him with a convenient pregnancy claim. It portrayed Luna as a burden he'd finally accepted out of guilty obligation. It made their beautiful, complicated real love story sound like a tawdry scandal designed for tabloid consumption. This is garbage journalism, Nathaniel said flatly. Perhaps, but garbage journalism that's threatening to cost us $2 billion. Harrison leaned forward. Nathaniel, I've known you for 8 years. You're brilliant, driven, and you've made this firm an extraordinary amount of money. But this situation is untenable. What are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice to make. Harrison's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it more ominous. You can end this arrangement with the woman and child, return to your previous lifestyle, and salvage the Yamamoto deal, or you can continue playing house and watch your career implode. The words hit Nathaniel like physical blows. You're asking me to abandon my daughter. I'm asking you to prioritize your professional obligations over your personal complications. She's not a complication, she's my daughter. A daughter who's about to cost you everything you've worked for. Harrison stood, moving to the windows that overlooked the Manhattan skyline. Nathaniel, the Yamamoto Group wants a meeting tomorrow. They want assurances that you've returned to being the focused, unencumbered businessman they originally invested with. Give them those assurances and we move forward. Don't, and they walk. And if they walk, the Millennium Project dies. Your reputation in the industry dies. Your partnership in this firm dies. Harrison turned back to face him. Everything you've built over the last decade disappears. Nathaniel stared out at the city he'd spent years conquering, the skyline that had once represented everything he'd wanted from life. Success, power, respect, financial security, all the things he'd thought mattered before Luna taught him about unconditional love, and Elena showed him what home really meant. I need time to think, Nathaniel said quietly. You have, until tomorrow morning. Harrison's tone was final. But Nathaniel, choose wisely. Families can be rebuilt. Careers like this, they don't come twice. The drive back to Elena's apartment felt like a funeral procession. Nathaniel's mind churned through possibilities, alternatives, ways to have both the career he'd built and the family he'd found. But Harrison's ultimatum was clear. He could have professional success or personal happiness, but not both. Elena was in the confectionery when he arrived, helping a customer select birthday cupcakes while Luna played quietly in the corner with her coloring books. The scene was so perfectly ordinary, so beautifully domestic that Nathaniel felt his heart break just looking at it. All finished with work? Elena asked when the customer left, but her smile faded when she saw his expression. What happened? Nathaniel glanced at Luna, who was humming softly to herself, completely absorbed in creating another masterpiece. Can we talk? Upstairs? 20 minutes later, after Luna had been settled with a snack and her favorite cartoon, Nathaniel told Elena everything. The ultimatum, the Yamamoto Group, the choice he'd been forced to make. Elena listened in silence, her face growing paler with every word. So, she said when he finished, they want you to choose between us and your career. Yes. And what are you going to choose? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Nathaniel looked at Elena, really looked at her. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and there was flour on her apron from the day's baking. She looked tired, worried, and absolutely beautiful. More importantly, she looked like home. Elena, what kind of man would I be if I abandoned my daughter for a business deal? A practical one, Elena said quietly. Nathaniel, this is your life's work we're talking about. Everything you've built, everything you've worked for. Are you asking me to leave? Elena's eyes filled with tears. I'm asking you to be sure, because if you stay, if you choose us over this deal, there's no guarantee you'll get another chance like this. Your career might never recover. And if I go? If you go, you prove that everything Harrison Mills said is true, that Luna and I are complications you can discard when they become inconvenient. Nathaniel moved closer to her, taking her hands in his. Elena, 4 years ago, I walked away from you because I was scared of how much I loved you. I was terrified of losing control, of needing someone so much that it changed who I was. And now I know that loving you and Luna didn't change who I am. It revealed who I was always meant to be. Nathaniel cupped her face gently. I don't want to be the man who builds towers but has no one to come home to. I don't want to be successful and empty. I want to be Luna's father and your, whatever you'll let me be, even if it costs you everything. Elena, you and Luna aren't costing me anything. You're giving me everything that actually matters. From the living room came Luna's voice, calling for her parents. They found her standing by the window, her face pressed against the glass. Daddy, it's snowing. Luna's voice was filled with wonder. Real snow. Can we go build a snowman? Can we have hot chocolate after? Can we make snow angels? Nathaniel looked at his daughter's excited face, then at Elena's hopeful expression, then back at Luna. This was what he was choosing. Not just love, but life. Not just success, but significance. We can do all of those things, sweetheart, Nathaniel said, lifting Luna into his arms. But first, Daddy has to make a very important phone call. Harrison answered on the first ring. Ro, tell me you've come to your senses. I have, Nathaniel said, walking to the window where Luna was now drawing pictures in the condensation on the glass. I'm choosing my family. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a long moment. You're making a mistake, Nathaniel. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. The Yamamoto group will walk. Then they walk. Your career will survive. And if it doesn't, I'll build something new, something better, something that doesn't require me to abandon the people I love. After Harrison hung up, Nathaniel turned to find Elena and Luna watching him with identical expressions of hope and love. Did you just? Elena began. I just chose us, Nathaniel confirmed. I chose love over money, family over career, happiness over what other people think success should look like. Luna, who didn't fully understand the conversation but recognized its importance, wrapped her small arms around Nathaniel's neck. Daddy, she said seriously, I'm proud of you. The simple words, spoken with such earnest sincerity, broke something open in Nathaniel's chest. This was what mattered. This love, this trust, this little girl who believed he was capable of anything. I'm proud of me too, sweetheart, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Elena moved closer, and suddenly Nathaniel found himself surrounded by the two people who made his world make sense. Outside, snow continued to fall on Manhattan, blanketing the city in quiet beauty. Inside, three people who'd found each other against all odds, held each other close, and began to plan their first Christmas together as a real family. The Millennium Project would indeed collapse without the Yamamoto Group's investment. Nathaniel's partnership at the firm would end. The financial press would have a field day with his fall from grace. But as he sat in Elena's warm kitchen that evening, helping Luna write a letter to Santa while Elena hummed softly as she baked cookies for tomorrow's customers, Nathaniel realized that he hadn't fallen at all. He had finally truly risen to the only height that mattered, being worthy of unconditional love. And that, he thought as Luna insisted that Santa needed to know about Captain Quack and Prince Featherworth, was the most successful deal he'd ever made. 18 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Rowe & Associates Sustainable Development, the boutique firm Nathaniel had built from the ground up after walking away from his old life. The office was smaller than his previous corner suite, but the view was infinitely better. He could see Central Park from his desk, and more importantly, he could see the confectionery where his wife worked just 3 blocks away. Wife. Even 6 months after their quiet courthouse wedding, the word still made him smile. Daddy, you're daydreaming again, Luna observed from her spot on the office couch, where she was supposed to be coloring quietly while he finished his morning calls. How can you tell? Nathaniel asked, amused by his 5-year-old's increasingly sophisticated observations. You get that mushy look when you think about Mommy, Luna explained with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who'd become an expert on adult behavior. Like how Prince Featherworth looks when he sees his reflection in the pond water. Prince Featherworth is vain, sweetheart. I'm just happy. Same thing, Luna declared with absolute certainty, then returned to her artwork, a detailed crayon portrait of their family that now included a small bump at Elena's midsection. The baby, due in 4 months and already the center of Luna's elaborate plans for sisterhood. She'd spent weeks explaining to Elena's belly about duck politics, proper crayon storage, and the importance of sharing toys with Captain Quack. Mr. Rowe, his assistant Jennifer, appeared in the doorway. The Carter family is here for their site visit. Send them in. Nathaniel straightened his tie. still expensive but now chosen for comfort as much as style, and prepared to show another young couple through the sustainable housing development that had become his signature project. The Harmony Gardens development was everything the failed Millennium Project had promised to be, but better, smaller scale, community-focused, built with families like his own in mind. It wasn't worth $2 billion, but it was worth something infinitely more valuable. It was work that mattered. Work that made the world better for Luna and the baby sister she was already fiercely protecting. After the site visit, Nathaniel collected Luna and headed to the confectionery for their daily lunch ritual. Sweetness and light had expanded since Elena's pregnancy news. She'd hired 2 part-time bakers and was considering a second location. Success looked different than it had 4 years ago, but it felt infinitely sweeter. "Mommy!" Luna burst through the shop's door like a small hurricane of excitement. "I drew the baby's room, and I have very important architectural suggestions." Elena looked up from behind the counter, her auburn hair now shoulder length and her green eyes bright with the particular glow that came with being 7 months pregnant and completely, radiantly happy. Her hand rested on the curve of her belly, a gesture so natural it looked like she'd been born doing it. "Architectural suggestions?" Elena repeated seriously. "Well, then I definitely need to hear these. Your daddy is the expert on building things." "Actually," Nathaniel said, kissing Elena's cheek and marveling as he did every day that he was allowed to do so, "I think Luna might be the real architect in this family. Have you seen her block cities lately? They're very advanced," Luna agreed modestly. "I'm thinking of adding elevators to the baby's room so she can reach important things like books and crackers." "Elevators," Elena mused. "Innovative. What else?" As Luna launched into an elaborate explanation of her nursery vision, Nathaniel watched his wife listen with the same focused attention she gave to everything Luna said. Elena had always been a natural mother, but watching her navigate pregnancy while also being Luna's everything continued to amaze him daily. "How's our little soccer player today?" Nathaniel asked, placing his hand over Elena's on her belly. "Active," Elena laughed. "I think she's practicing her kicks for when she meets her big sister. She's going to love Luna," Nathaniel said with confidence. "How could she not?" "Speaking of love," Elena said, her tone shifting to something more serious, "I got a call from Manhattan Business Weekly this morning. They want to do a feature article about your firm, From Wall Street to Main Street, One Man's Journey to Purpose-Driven Business." Nathaniel grimaced. "I'm not sure I want to be the poster child for career redemption stories." "Why not?" Elena challenged gently. "You built something beautiful, Nathaniel. Something that matters. People should know that you can choose differently and still succeed." "I succeeded when I married you," Nathaniel said quietly. "Everything else is just details." Elena's smile was soft and knowing. "That's exactly what you should tell the reporter." That evening, after Luna had been bathed, read to and tucked into bed with elaborate bedtime negotiations about whether stuffed animals counted as acceptable midnight snacks, only for very special occasions and only carrots, Nathaniel and Elena sat on their small balcony watching the city lights twinkle below. Their apartment was bigger now, a 3-bedroom place 2 blocks from the confectionery with enough room for Luna's art studio, Elena's home office, and the nursery that was slowly taking shape. It wasn't a penthouse, but it was filled with laughter and crayon masterpieces and the kind of comfortable chaos that came with real, lived-in love. "Do you ever miss it?" Elena asked suddenly, settling more comfortably against Nathaniel's side. "The old life, the power, the recognition? Do you miss being alone?" Nathaniel countered gently. Elena considered this. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of only having to worry about Luna and myself, but I don't miss the loneliness. I don't miss wondering if I was strong enough to handle everything by myself. I don't miss feeling empty," Nathaniel said. "I thought success was supposed to fill that void, but it just made it more obvious. This," he gestured to their balcony, "their life, their family. This is the only success that actually matters. Even when Luna has tantrums because her socks feel weird, especially then. Even when I'm hormonal and cry because we're out of pickles, especially then. Even when the baby keeps us up all night and we're both exhausted and arguing about whose turn it is to change diapers." Nathaniel turned to face Elena fully, taking her hands in his. "Elena, I walked away from a $2 billion deal to have breakfast with you and Luna every morning. Do you really think a few sleepless nights are going to change my mind about where I want to be?" Elena's smile was radiant. "When you put it that way, I love our life," Nathaniel said simply. "I love that Luna leaves art supplies on my desk and insists that Captain Quack needs regular business updates. I love that you hum while you work and that you still steal my coffee even though you're not supposed to have caffeine. I love that we're building something together, not just a family, but a life that makes sense. I love our life too, Elena said softly. I love that you show up, every day, even when it's hard. I love that you chose us over everything else. I love that Luna doesn't remember a time when you weren't here. Good, Nathaniel said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. Because you're stuck with me, all of you, forever. Promise? Promise. From inside the apartment came a small voice. Mommy? Daddy? I had a dream about the baby, and I think she wants to hear about Prince Featherworth's royal duties. Elena and Nathaniel looked at each other and laughed. The kind of laughter that came from joy so complete it had to overflow somehow. Duty calls, Elena said, struggling to her feet with the careful movements of advanced pregnancy. Our duty calls, Nathaniel corrected, helping her up. All of ours. As they walked back into their warm, imperfect, absolutely perfect home, where Luna was waiting to share her dreams and the baby was growing stronger every day, Nathaniel felt the same sense of contentment that hit him every evening. He had traded towers of glass and steel for finger paintings on the refrigerator. He had traded million-dollar deals for bedtime stories and butterfly band-aids. He had traded recognition and power for love and purpose, and the kind of success that couldn't be measured in bank accounts. Some people might call it a fall from grace. Nathaniel called it the best decision he'd ever made. 3 years ago, if someone had told him that his greatest achievement would be earning the right to be called Daddy by a little girl with blue eyes and an imagination bigger than the city itself, he would have thought they were insane. Now, as Luna launched into an elaborate explanation of her dream while Elena rubbed her belly and smiled, Nathaniel couldn't imagine wanting anything more than exactly what he had. Love, it turned out, was the ultimate return on investment, and family was the only empire worth building. Sometimes the most profound transformations happen not when we gain everything we thought we wanted, but when we're brave enough to choose what actually matters. Nathaniel's journey from boardroom to baby bottles wasn't about losing his ambition. It was about redirecting it towards something that would last long after the stock market closed and the office lights went dark. In a world that often measures success by what we accumulate rather than what we contribute, their story reminds us that the greatest victories are often the most personal ones. The courage to choose love over convenience, presence over prestige, and authentic connection over artificial achievement. Would you have made the same choice Nathaniel made? When faced with the decision between career success and family happiness, what would matter most to you? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.